So, Tom, who came up with this idea for Loop, and how did it all transpire?
Well, so Loop was something that was always percolating in the back of our minds, but really 2 years ago it's emerged, and this came up at the World Economic Forum when we were launching the Head & Shoulders ocean plastic bottle in partnership with Procter Gamble. TerraCycle and P&G had created this really cool ocean plastic thing, and we were chatting sort of academically because it was such a successful launch, and we were saying, look, in the end, it's really important to recycle. And it's really important to use recycled materials, just like a lot of the sort of big commitments organizations have made so far. But is that really the foundational solution to waste? It's sort of equivalent to saying it's cleaning up the ocean, the foundational solution to ocean plastic. And I say this as a recycling company. We realize the answer is no. Recycling and using recycled materials are critically important for to do right now and to do it in a big way. But the real question we have to ask, and this is what Loop asks, is how do we solve waste at the root cause? And in exploring this, the realization was that the root cause of waste is disposability and single use. It's not that plastic is bad or aluminum is bad or anything. It's the single-use nature, the throwaway nature is the challenge. And that was sort of the genesis. Now, the next step to take if we say, okay, well, single use is the problem, is to understand why is single use taken over everything. Why has disposability sort of won, if you will? And I would argue that, disposability came about in the 1950s, and it won because of two profound benefits: incredible convenience and really good affordability. So products became cheaper and really convenient. And
I agree. Yeah, totally.
Yes. So then you say, well, then why did reuse? Why did the milkman model go away? Or why don't reuse models today, like refill stations, buying refill containers, bulk refill, getting a big sachet and filling it, why are those only fringe models? Why haven't they, after decades of use, really become big? And I would argue it's because they don't beat disposability at convenience, let alone like refill stations also have some QA, QC challenges that for big brands and big retailers may be difficult to overcome. Mm-hmm. And so the thesis for Loop was, how do we solve for disposability while maintaining or beating the affordability and convenience provided by disposability? And the pivotal shift, the truly unlocking vehicle that makes Loop work, is the same pivotal shift that a company like Airbnb has done in the hotel industry or Uber in the taxi industry, which is really debate and then change ownership.
Okay.
In Airbnb doesn't own the hotel room, and Uber doesn't own the car. Now, in consumer products, it's inverted. In consumer products, the consumer, when they buy, say, a cup of coffee, also buy the cup. Or when they buy a bottle of shampoo, also buy the bottle. And let me ask you, you've bought, I'm sure, just like I have, a lot of disposable goods, over the past year. Do you cherish any of those packages for many years to come when they're empty?
I'm a little different because I'm the editor of a packaging magazine. Yes, I do save some packages, but a lot of times it's because I'm buying the product because of the package, to get the sample of the package. But as a consumer, it's rare, extremely rare, for me to save the package.
So perfect. Let's stay with you as a consumer for a moment.
Yeah.
As a consumer, when your package is empty, would you say that it's so you don't want it? But also, would it be fair to say that then that process to deal with it once it's empty, whether you have to throw it in the garbage, whether you put it in the recycling, is not a positive. It's work. It's somewhat annoying. It's not the biggest thing, but it's a small negative.
I would say a little bit. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Why should?
Yeah, we have a very good infrastructure here in the U.S., though, for waste management, which does it, makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, it's still a little bit.
But net, it's not a delighting thing, right?
Correct.
Right. So then that begs the question: why should you own it? Because here's the really weird part: is when you own it, it becomes a cost of goods sold to the manufacturer, the company who made it. And to the manufacturer, the goal is to reduce costs. And so what happens is packaging over the past, really 70 years since disposable packaging has become commercially viable, has become progressively cheaper, and cheaper. Today we call that lightweighting. And in lightweighting, there are two phenomenal positives that packaging experiences. One is it becomes incredibly more affordable, which is great for the consumer. Things become cheaper. But it also becomes, it's also less material use, which is also a sustainability argument. Something like a pouch compared to a refillable glass bottle is way cheaper and way less material. But there's two unintended negatives. The first unintended negative is recycling goes down as packages become lighter and more complicated. So if you take something like beverages began in the U.S. in the turn of the century in refillable glass bottles. And in the U.S. they were reused at about 90%. Then they moved to aluminum cans, which are recycled today, let's say at 60%, then to PET bottles, recycled today at about 25%, then to carton, recycled today at a bit over 10%, and then to pouches, which are today not recyclable at all, except for, say, specialty systems like TerraCycle, but truly, from a municipal point of view, not recyclable. And so recycling crashes, and the reason it does is not because they're not technically recyclable, everything is. It's entirely because there is less value for waste management companies to recover. And waste management companies or recyclers are really urban miners. But the other unintended negative is when you ask consumers to put those 5 packaging forms in order, from the most exciting to the least exciting. Statistically, they say glass bottle is the best, aluminum can, then PET bottle, then carton, and worst pouch, from a consumer delight point of view. And interestingly, Coca Cola is one of the partners in Loop, so is Pepsi and some other major players in the beverage industry. And the team at Coca Cola was really interesting when you said that when you take the same flavor of Coca Cola, the same classic Coke, same formula, and you put it into a glass bottle versus an aluminum can versus a PET bottle, and then you serve that to a consumer blind, so they don't know which bottle it came from, and you ask them to put it in order of the best taste to the to the least. It would be in order of glass, aluminum, and then plastic.
Okay, I think I've seen research that backs that up. Yes.
Right. So the second unintended negative is there's a degradation of consumer delight in the process. And so recycling goes down and the consumer gets less excited. And so the pivotal shift for Loop, like Uber, Airbnb, is to challenge the concept of ownership. So today, as we mentioned earlier, you own your disposable package and you don't really want to. In Loop, the package is always property of the consumer product company. So Pantene maintains ownership over its shampoo bottle, Seventh Generation maintains ownership over its hand soap, and so on and so forth. And because ownership shifts, this package becomes an asset. And because of that, the company is not motivated to make it as cheap as possible, but instead motivated to making it as long-lasting and durable as possible. Because technically, say, a $1 package that has 10 uses is 10 cents per use, but a $5 package that has 100 uses is 5 cents per use. And that really changes the game. Because durability, as you can see in the Loop packages, brings about 3 virtues. The first is it moves from disposal or recycling to reuse, which is a huge environmental upgrade. I mean, just think in elementary school we learn reduce, reuse, recycle. This goes from the recycle to the reuse. The second is less intuitive, but I'd argue even more important. It moves from relatively low-value packaging materials to, well, arguably luxury or game-changing packaging materials. It goes from, say, multi-layered plastic film to stainless steel or glass or engineered plastics and so on. So a huge upgrade in design and material to really go to a place packaging has never gone before.
Okay.
And third, I would say, is that it brings about the option for new features. Like, take the Haagen-Dazs container in Loop. Yep. Today, Haagen-Dazs in your normal store is packaged in a paperboard that's coated. It's almost like a coffee cup, if you will. In Loop, it's double-wall stainless steel. And that container isn't just gorgeous, but it also keeps your ice cream frozen for a number of hours after you remove it from the freezer.
I can't wait to see that one, because I know it works really well in conjunction with the tote, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit later too. But okay, stay on target. You've got 4 ways that changes the game.
Yeah, so those three ways. So it goes reusable.
Okay.
It goes to luxury design or, super premium design, and it also brings out new features that could never be experienced before. And it does, and it's not even just modestly better, it's a whole new playing field. Like just nothing that people have seen before. And this is the real magic, is that it's not just about reuse. Loop is about the future of consumption. And in the future, I would argue that one of the principles are that the concept of waste shouldn't exist. I mean, I'd hope that people 50 years from now look back at us and be like, well, that garbage thing was an odd idea, and glad we're over it.
Okay. Okay, well, this is good. So talk a little bit more about this consumption future of consumption. Why do you believe that Loop is the future of consumption?
So, I'd say Loop is definitely one of the puzzle pieces of the future of consumption. I would hope it would be the answer, but I think it's going to be an ecosystem of answers like this. And, the key right now is that disposability has done a phenomenal amount of benefit. It has elevated a lot of people out of poverty, given people access to much-needed products like hand soap and even just basic nutrition, has allowed for food to last longer, and all these really great things. But it has this massive side effect of the global garbage crisis. I mean, 25% of our plastic globally ends up in our oceans. We are today drinking microplastics. No matter where you drink your beverage from, we're drinking it. It's really a foundational problem. And so, I think what's really exciting is the large organizations, the large producers out there are agreeing and understanding and looking to make a change. And this is why what's, to me, the most proud part of Loop is not just that, we're launching and it exists, but the world's biggest consumer product companies are taking it really seriously. So, Loop is really an engine, right? It's an engine for consumer product companies to be able to move from disposable products consumers own to durable ones they borrow. It's also an engine for retailers. And the type of companies involved are, P&G, Nestlé, Mars, Unilever, SC Johnson, Beiersdorf, and Coty, and so on and so forth. Really the large organizations that are a part of this, taking seriously how to reinvent their packaging in a way that is just truly, going in a different direction. Companies including like Danone or Coca Cola, Pepsi, and so on and so forth. And then this is embedded into major retailers, Carrefour in France, and we're about to announce some more retailers in the UK, in the US, and Canada that'll be coming up soon.
Okay, so when you talk about it being an engine for retailers, you're really not talking about the United States at this point, though. You're talking about...
We are. No. Absolutely. So Loop is has just launched at the World Economic Forum, and it will be then in the spring, going live in the northeast of the United States and in the Paris area. Those are the two first launches. In Paris, it's in partnership with Carrefour, biggest French retailer, and in the U.S. we'll be announcing the retailer at launch. Then, in September, it will be going live in the London area with a major UK retailer.
Okay.
And then early 2020 in Toronto with one of the biggest Canadian retailers, and then later in 2020 in Japan with a major Japanese retailer. And the goal here is that Loop is not here to compete with retailers nor brands. It's here to be an engine for brands to bring about this new model of packaging, and it's an engine for retailers to be able to impregnate the service into both their e-commerce as well as their physical store environments. And if you ask Carrefour, what they would tell you is this is a way for them to reasonably create the packaging-free aisle, which is something that may even be legislated at some point in Europe.
Okay, wonderful. Tom, I didn't know that there was this whole retail side to it. I thought it was all just e-commerce, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the places where it's going to launch, and initially, and then where you're already going to expand. So why did you decide to launch this in Paris and the northeastern United States first?
Well, so the reason for the northeast of the U.S., which will be servicing New York, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, is because TerraCycle is a New Jersey-based company. We are, while we are global in 21 countries, we are proudly headquartered in New Jersey, and so that's just one to be close to us, so we can all experience it and use it. Why Paris is because the UK and France, which are both launching in 2019, just happens to be France first,
Okay.
are the epicenter of the waste crisis right now. They're the countries whose consumers are really up in arms about single-use packaging, and whose legislators are now passing laws around single-use packaging, and it's where this topic is the most pronounced anywhere in the world.
Okay.
And we felt that was the right place to begin because, frankly, the retailers there, the brands, the partners, are really receptive to these type of ideas. Now, the good news is these are all global organizations, so it's very easy to then start, say, in France, but then pivot over to Canada or other parts of the United States and so on.
Okay, makes perfect sense, yeah. Okay, and so you also launched this at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Why there?
Well, so the World Economic Forum is one of the only collections or moments in the world, let's say, where most of the global leaders of the world get together, political and business. And what's really exciting about the Loop press conference is that it's David Taylor, CEO of P&G, Ramon Laguarta, CEO of PepsiCo, even the head of Greenpeace International, which I thought was incredibly cool. Greenpeace put out a list of the top 10 companies contributing to the global garbage crisis. Mm-hmm. 8 of the 10 are Loop partners. 8 of the
wonderful.
10. Yeah, and so having the leadership of these organizations there, proudly on stage with Greenpeace, to highlight this, to me, is just the most poetic and perfect vehicle to launch the platform. And we had good experience. When we launched the Head & Shoulders ocean plastic bottle at Davos in 2017, it worked very well, and so we thought, why not build on some success?
Sure, makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. So, as we were talking about this, you talked about the two benefits of disposable packaging that hadn't been addressed by earlier refill models, and that was affordability and convenience. Let's talk about this convenience angle first.
Yes.
How is the Loop refillable model convenient for the consumer?
Great question. So when Loop launches, it's going to first start as an e-commerce model, and later it's going to pivot in stores. So let's first describe it in the way consumers will first experience it. So, and I'm going to, as I do this, I'm going to side-by-side compare what it would be like, let's say, ordering on your normal e-commerce engine, whatever you use, let's say, normal Haagen-Dazs, and then the Loop Haagen-Dazs through loopstore.com in the U.S.
Okay.
So when you go to the website, and let's just say it was, you got retailer X, whatever their website is, and you go online and you purchase your normal Haagen-Dazs, and it gets delivered to you in cardboard and bubble wrap. That's the normal outbound delivery. Oh, and if it's Haagen-Dazs, maybe some dry ice and some other cooling material that helps keep it cold.
Yep.
That would be like the normal way it's delivered to you.
Yep.
In Loop, you would order your Haagen-Dazs, and it is then delivered to you, not in cardboard and bubble wrap and a bunch of throwaway cooling device or cooling systems, but in a beautiful, ultra-durable shipping container, closer to the idea of luggage than the idea of cardboard, and a cooling technology inside that is fully reusable, and there's no disposable parts. So it's now even more convenient because you don't have to deal with all that cardboard, lugging it down to the curb, and you don't have to deal with throwing out all these ice packs and all the other ways that they would cool the ice cream for you. So now we're one step more convenient. Now you enjoy the product. And while this is not more convenient, you have a way elevated experience with the product, because instead of eating your Haagen-Dazs out of a coated paperboard, you're eating it out of double-wall stainless steel that even keeps your ice cream frozen on the table when you have a dinner party or however you decide to consume. So I don't know if that's more convenient, but definitely a way better perspective.
Well,
or way better experience.
Yes, experience is big for consumer products. So we all know that, yes.
Yes. So now the package is empty. In both cases, if it's disposable, you don't clean it. You just, in the case of Haagen-Dazs, it's not recyclable, so you throw it in the garbage, and then you got to take the garbage down to the curb, and a garbage company picks it up and takes it to a landfill. That's how it ends. In Loop, you don't have to wash it either. Completely dirty. You put it back in the Loop tote, which now becomes your reuse bin. Not recycling bin, not garbage bin, but your reuse bin. And then when that bin is full of a bunch of, dirty, used loop packages, you request a pickup, and we pick it up directly from you during the pickup you requested, or there's a number of other ways to have it picked up if you don't want to have a pickup from your home. So it's about the same as garbage in that sense. But then here's the really cool part. When it comes back to us, we check it in, and you could have chosen to set your Haagen-Dazs to refill me when returned, or don't refill me when returned. If you set it to refill me when returned, that empty Haagen-Dazs container triggers an order of a new one. So it's subscription, but perfectly timed based on your consumption. So if in your tote is, let's say, a Pantene bottle and some Tide laundry detergent and maybe your, Hellmann's mayonnaise and your Haagen-Dazs ice cream, that's what then gets reordered automatically exactly as you consume it. So it's subscription based on actual consumption, which is a massive convenience because now you don't have to go back online to buy, and you don't have to go into a store to buy. You save the entire mode of shopping, and you also don't have to worry about a box showing up every month because it shows up exactly as you consume, which is a massive, massive convenience build.
Okay.
And then it doesn't become garbage in the end, it just gets reused.
Okay, so I see how that would work for a lot of different products, but what about some of the products that maybe you don't want a time lag between when you finish the product to when you get your next reorder, like maybe shampoo?
Sure, or even like toothpaste, right?
Sure.
Yeah, because you always have to have it. And we do have toothpaste in Loop with Signal, which is actually, what's really cool about the Unilever toothpaste in Loop is that it's one of the, I think the first time, mass market toothpaste doesn't show up in a tube, which is super cool.
Okay.
It's actually this, it's like a capsule that you put in your mouth, perfectly dosed. Yeah, and it turns into toothpaste in your mouth, and it's a perfectly dosed toothpaste bit. So anyway, super cool. Now, in something like toothpaste, if you always want to have some on hand, because it does take somewhere between 24 and 48 hours for the loop to go around for you, and a new one to show up, you would simply buy two, and you send in your first toothpaste, and then you start using the second one, and then by within 2 days the first one's back again. So you always have somewhere between 1 and 2 on hand. That's a very, very simple way to solve. Now, as Loop grows and shows up on shelf, which is planned to do at the end of 19 in major retailers, then the model, you simply go to the store and buy your Loop products there.
Okay, got it. So you're doing this in partnership with the stores. Is there any plan in the future, perhaps, for physical Loop stores?
Well, so not physical Loop stores, because again, we're an engine for retailers. So, but what it would be is aisles in actual, major retailers today that would become a Loop aisle, which we would end up calling the package-free aisle.
Okay. All right. Got it. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, so I can see how all that would work. Yes. So how many times will the packages be reused?
This is a very good question. So we have basic rules in Loop on what is allowed to be in the system, and it has to be reusable, cleanable, durable, those sort of factors, and all the brands comply with that. With that said, the general goal is to get to about 100 uses. That's the general goal we aim to, but some go way more than that. But the bottom line, the more uses, effectively, the cheaper it is for the brand per use. That example of a $1 package having 10 uses is 10 cents per use, while a $5 package having 100 uses is 5 cents per use. So the number of uses is by far the most important mathematical driver. And so what's cool about that is that here the motivations move in the right direction, even if you just think about money. Usually there's a challenge. Sometimes when you think just about cash, the environment may suffer. Here, it actually marries it beautifully together.
Okay, interesting. So one of the other challenges that we've seen with reusable packaging in other areas of the supply chain, for example, maybe plant to plant and things like that, or, even if it's within supply chain partners, is the whole idea of asset management, that keeping track of the packages, where they are, how they're going to get returned. How are you addressing that? Is it a loop service, or is that something that the brands will do?
No, so the basic piece here is a package like that loop. Let's say Pantene bottle will either be with Pantene being filled, or it would be in Loop Distribution Center, or it would be with the consumer. Those are the only three choices. So it's actually not many places it could be. And Loop tracks basically where it is along the process, and then reports that to the brand to be able to track assets. The key here is what makes many times reusable models complicated is there's many touch points, and what makes them sometimes inconvenient as well is that it's mono supply chains, like the milkman only delivered milk.
Right.
While the beer guy only did beer. Here it's about bringing it all together under one roof to make it easy to solve those issues.
Is there going to be any technology for tracking on these packages?
At the beginning, they're going to be just basic barcodes. But over time, we're looking at different tracking technologies like RFID or different forms to do even more tracking. So right now, for example, we wouldn't know a bottle and where that specific bottle had gone and traveled. But if we're able to start tracking on a bottle-by-bottle basis, we would actually be able to tell you where that particular bottle had gone. And this is stuff we're looking at, but for now that's a bit operationally complicated, so we're tracking by bottle style. This is important to note is that each shampoo bottle brand, because we have, for example, everything from Pantene shampoo with P&G to all the way to Love Beauty Planet, Living Proof, and a number of other shampoo brands by companies like Unilever. Each of those shampoo brands will have their own different, completely unique, durable packaging. So for now, that's the tracking, but we do hope to get the technology enabled to be able to track on a per unit basis as well.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. So who then pays for or manages that loop tote? How does the whole tote thing work?
Well, so effectively, when you're a consumer and you order, on every product you pay for the price of the product. Let's say your Haagen-Dazs ice cream, you pay for the ice cream, and then you pay a deposit on the package equal to the value of the package. And that ranges from, say, as low as 25 cents for a classic Coke bottle up to a few dollars if it's something more advanced as packaging goes. And it can get even higher as long as and that's usually if the packaging has a lot of function in it. Then when you put that in your shopping cart, a tote is enabled, and you pay a deposit on the tote equal to the value of the tote, because again, that is also reusable, and you have a shipping fee. Now here's the key. As you add more products, the shipping goes down, and at about 6 or 7 products, the shipping becomes free. And that shipping includes both the outbound shipping and the pickup as well of the material.
Okay. So both ways.
Both ways, yeah. Completely around, yeah.
Yeah, so for e-commerce, the whole idea of who pays for the returns has been a little bit of a sticky point. So you already have that figured out. Okay.
Here, effectively, the return is always assumed.
Okay. Well, of course, because it's a reusable package. Yes.
There you go. Exactly right. Exactly right.
So it's quite... It could be that the consumer would have more than one tote. You would think that, maybe...
Very likely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, like I run Loop, and today at home I have 3 totes.
Okay.
And, these totes collapse, so you can put them away for easy storage. And then, so I have 2, put away, and I have 1 that is acting as my, not garbage bin, not recycling bin, but reuse bin.
Okay, very nice. Okay.
And again, the key here is I don't have to wash out my packaging. I don't have to do anything different than what I do in throwing it out today.
Okay. So, talking about the washing out, with all this cleaning and the return shipping, how is this concept environmentally positive? You did a life cycle assessment study, did you not? What were the results?
Yes, we did. Not just one, but a number of them.
Okay.
And the punchline is this. if you take a normal disposable package, and let's say you order 10 of those disposable packages over a year, the impact will be 10 times the impact of one disposable package. In other words, the same impact every time you do it. In Loop, when we first make the durable package, or the company makes it, it is more environmentally costly, no question, because it's much more materials and more premium materials like alloys instead of plastics or glass and so on. Now, every time that goes around, the impact goes down greatly because it goes around again and you don't have to reincur the cost of creation. And here's the punchline: at about 3 uses, it becomes, somewhere between 3 and 4 uses, it becomes equal in impact to disposable. And then, depending on the product, at around 10 uses, it becomes 50 to 75% better for the environment than disposable, and then maintains there. Because there still is the cost of collection and cleaning, so it never becomes perfect, but it becomes meaningfully better for the environment.
Okay, wonderful. I can definitely see, even though it involves a little bit of math, I can handle that a little bit of math as far as figuring that out. But one of the other things that I heard, though, was that if there's any product yet in, sometimes, perhaps maybe somebody tries a product, didn't perhaps like it or not, and then so when they return the package, there's still a little bit of product in there. I understand that you're going to try to recover even some unused product?
No, let me clarify that. So, no, because that wouldn't be reasonable. So, basically, here's the rules of Loop. The package must be reusable to even be allowed in Loop. And that's mandatory, or the partner can't list the product. Okay. That's for the package. It must be durable, reusable. But then let's pivot over to content. There's really 3 types of content out there. There is content that is consumed and is not able to be recovered, like orange juice, or Quaker granola, or whatever, anything like that. We have no point of view if it's not recoverable. But there is content that can be recovered, and in that type of content, there are 2 subsets. There's content that can be recovered and is unreasonable to reuse, like a dirty diaper. Use femcare products, I use razor blade, I use toothbrush head. All of those, which are all in Loop, through brands like Pampers, Always, Oral-B, Gillette, will go to recycling, which is pretty cool because Loop will be the first time in France diapers are recycled, or the first time in the U.S. razor blades are recycled. I mean, they're pretty big upgrades. Now, if the content is recoverable and reusable, let's say like the body of a pen with a company like Bic, then it must go to reuse. So that's how we deal with the content in those 3 derivatives.
Okay, got it. Thank you for explaining that. Okay. So at the end of the life of this durable package, what happens at the end of the life? Because obviously everything's going to have an end of the life.
Absolutely. So one of the design rules in Loop is that the package in the end has to be recyclable, and ideally into itself. And we, as recycling experts, can help manage that process.
Would you consider waste to energy one of the end-of-life options, and why or why not?
So absolutely not. And the reason is waste to energy is not recycling. Waste to energy is better than landfilling, no question, but it's still a linear process. You can only do it once. You can only convert waste to energy once. And with Loop, we're only about circular processes. So in the end, when it gets recycled, it must go to recycling when the package inevitably hits its end of life.
Okay, I would imagine that might create a little bit of a challenge from the upfront design, especially as you were mentioning earlier about maybe new features on packages and having them be durable. A lot of times that may mean a design using multiple materials. But in a circular process, I would imagine that you're also encouraging them to perhaps maybe have monomaterial or easily separated materials?
Well, this is it. If a partner was going to recommend a multi-layered material, we simply wouldn't approve it, and then we would guide them on how to get around that or how to come up with an alternative, right? So, this is where Loop helps. We don't just say yes or no, your product made it or didn't. We also help you solve for it.
Okay. I didn't have this on my list of questions that I sent you in advance, Tom, but what is Loop a separate company from TerraCycle? How is the business of Loop working?
Sure. So Loop is a division of TerraCycle, but it is set up as an independent company, which TerraCycle owns the majority of. But we do have some strategic investors. Procter Gamble has purchased 2% of Loop. Suez, their water division, has purchased 4% of Loop. Okay. So there are some strategic investors, and we welcome others as well. But it is effectively a division of TerraCycle, or an operating company per se.
Okay. And so, have you staffed up for this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Loop now, it's been, just about a bit over a year of really aggressive growth on it. It's now over 60 people, and we're just continuously hiring more people.
Oh, wonderful. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay. So you mentioned Suez. So what are they specifically going to be doing in the partnership?
Well, so Suez, is one of the largest waste management companies, and for full disclosure, Suez Waste owns 30% of TerraCycle, UK, France, Benelux, and Nordics. But their water division has been the one who bought 4% of Loop, and the reason they did is because Loop has a lot of cleaning, and they're one of the world's leaders in wastewater treatment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So they're going to also work on the cleanliness for the packages before they're reused. Okay.
You got it. Exactly right.
Does that mean that the packages have to go to them in between every use, or how will the process of the cleaning work?
So, no, they just are experts in wastewater treatment, so it doesn't go to them. The cleaning happens at a Loop facility. They just help us with it.
Okay. Okay. And I believe there's also some new technology there on the cleaning, which we can get into in a little bit. But before I lose my train of thought here, so I did want to ask, because affordability was one of the two.
Yes.
Convenience and affordability. So let's talk a little bit about affordability here. How do these durable packages, reusable packages, compare cost-wise to the single-use counterparts? And I know you talked about the multiple uses. You get a little bit better economics there. But can you just speak to the affordability a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll speak to it on two contexts. So one is the affordability for the manufacturer, and the other is for the consumer. Why don't we begin with the consumer? Okay. So in the state of the consumer, if let's say your Tide laundry detergent costs in a store $10, I'm just making up a number, in Loop it'll cost $10 as well, plus a fully refundable deposit equal to the value of the package. Let's call that $1. So in your first transaction, you pay $11. Now, when you return the Tide package, the Loop one, no matter what state you return it, and this is critically important, that all the wear and tear damage is the responsibility of the manufacturer, because the creator should be responsible for what they created effectively. And so no matter what state you return the package, you will get your $1 back. So in the end, it's the exact same price as a normal bottle of Tide. Then over to the manufacturer, like Procter & Gamble, who makes Tide, instead of having to spend every time someone buys Tide the price of a Tide disposable bottle, they have to invest more up front, but then that gets amortized over many uses.
Okay. I did not do real well on accounting in school, so I don't understand a whole lot of that. But do these
well, let me try to give you a lay perspective on this. For the consumer part makes sense, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the manufacturer. So let's say, I'm just making these numbers up. Let's say a normal Tide package costs 30 cents. a disposable one. And let's say the loop one costs $1 to make, or let's even say it costs $3 to make.
Okay.
If Tide is going to sell 100 bottles of Tide, they would have to pay for that packaging 30 cents times 100, right?
Yes.
Or that would be $30. In Loop, let's say that one Tide bottle can go around 100 times, then they would have paid $3 in total, and on a per-use basis, it would be $3 divided by 100, or 3 cents per use, instead of 30 cents.
Okay.
So that's a general approach.
Okay. Got it. And but that's just the price of the package. What about all the back and forth and...
So once you add in the cost of collection and cleaning, it becomes about the same, give or take, than disposable. Now, it's important to note that in the short term, when Loop is small, our large partners are investing into Loop and effectively subsidizing it so that consumers can experience prices that they would experience when Loop is at scale and really functioning at a very high operational efficiency.
Okay.
So at the beginning, organizations like PepsiCo and Coca Cola and Tide, P&G and Unilever are subsidizing this so that you can experience the right price. So when it gets to scale, that's when the economics click in nicely.
Okay. And yet you're launching with so many major brand owners supporting you already. You said more than 300 SKUs already you've got?
Yeah, give or take, depending on markets, but yes, about that.
Wow, that's quite amazing. Quite amazing. So how are if we can think a little bit more at the brand owner level, how are these reusable packages handled for them to be refilled? Are they have they all invested in new packaging equipment?
Well, it depends. In some cases they can use existing equipment, and in some cases they have to use adjusted equipment. It all depends, right? So each product is different, but in some cases it can run on completely normal equipment, and in some cases the equipment has to be adjusted, and in some rare cases it's brand new equipment.
Okay. I'd love to be able to talk with some of the brand owners on that and see what they're doing.
Absolutely. So what we can do is whomever set this discussion up on my team, if you ask them to connect you with some brands, they'll happily set up some interviews with whichever brands you would like.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have any kind of a estimate or even a guesstimate on what you think the production volumes are going to be, let's say maybe in the first year?
So in the first year, they're kept purposefully low. People will have to apply to join Loop, and there'll just be a select number of availabilities, a meaningful number, but it'll be kept purposefully low to make it easy for the manufacturers to be able to get their operations up and running. And then from there, the goal is crazy scale, and this is why we're partnered with the major retailers, because they will bring about scale very quickly. But that's going to happen in year 2 and 3.
Okay. Oh, can't wait to hear more on that. Okay. So with the retailers getting involved, which you say is still down the road, is that...
Well, sort of, in the sense that, Carrefour is launching with us, right away. And they're the number one French retailer. So, no, you'll see a lot of these retailers in 2019, starting with Carrefour.
Okay. Excellent. Are there any other incentives maybe for the consumer? Like how are you and the brands going to be positioning this to consumers?
Well, here's the simple way to think about it. We are giving consumers the ability to experience their favorite products, the ones they trust and love, so the big brands, in an experience which is way higher luxury and quality, new features, all without the concept of garbage existing. And tell me a consumer who wouldn't prefer that over what they have today.
Okay. Wonderful. Tom, to have that much of a succinct summary, I think tells us we should stop here.